Morning, everybody. Well, the change oil soon light came on the Gladiator, so I figured I better get that knocked out real quick. It'll be interesting to see how many percent is left. But anyways, just gonna make a quick video here on how to knock this out real quick. A lot of new Gladiator owners, maybe not very mechanically inclined, but want to try and start doing things themselves. Basic necessities: you're going to need 5 quarts of 0 weight, 020 weight oil. I don't use the Castrol Edge because I think it's the best on earth. I just use it because it's convenient and you can get it just about anywhere. Use a standard 349 Mopar oil filter. You can use gloves if you want. Can get a little bit messy. You're going to need a 13mm wrench for the drain plug in the oil pan. And you're going to need a 24mm socket for the oil filter cap. Drain pan. Also, if you don't have a 24mm socket, a 15/16 American socket in 6-point will work just fine on the oil filter cap. Get yourself some rags, you're going to need that. Now, this is just my own personal preference also. If your engine's cold, leave it cold and drain it cold and let it take however long it takes to drain out. Otherwise, you really should do it when it's hot. I don't recommend that you start an engine and then say move it across the garage or move it across the driveway and then shut it back off cold and then change the oil, because you will get a tremendous amount of oil sitting up in the top of the engine, even with a 0 weight oil. So let's get the drain plug loose first. We'll get the pan draining and then we'll work on the filter. I broke that loose already, so in case you're wondering why I didn't have to put very much effort into it, I cheated. Hold on to the drain plug. You can use an aerosol cleaner like a brake cleaner or a LPS product, whatever you like, to wash off the drain plug and the filter parts. A lot of times I use a product from LPS called F104. It's a general degreaser. The seal on this bolt should last just about the life of the engine. Okay, now we'll take the filter out. This can be a little bit messy, so have some rags handy so you don't pour dirty oil all over your engine. So that's your cartridge style filter. So that's your oil filter. It's not the usual spin-on filter like a lot of cars have, where it would be on the bottom of the engine block somewhere. I actually don't mind these. Let's go get this cleaned up. So this filter just snapped into place, so you got to pop it off the cap. If I remember right, there's a O-ring down inside there. I'll look at that here in a second. Okay, so we only have the cap O-ring. Dog hair on the filter already. So get a little squeeze on that O-ring and you can get it to come up out of the groove. Old O-ring. So there's an O-ring right there. New filter comes with the O-ring on it already. New O-ring. This is the cleaner that I like to use. Oh, rinse of the bolt. Mostly it doesn't need to be spotless, just easier to handle and you don't drop it as much when it's not all oily. Rinse out the cap a little bit. I'll rinse of the threads. Here again, if you don't rinse this cap off, just wipe it down, that's good enough. It's not going to blow up if you don't take the degreaser to it. New O-ring. You want to make sure that it rolls into that groove right there, this groove. And that it doesn't get all twisted up. New filter is going to snap in place, just like that. Now we'll go put this guy back in. I got just enough slippery on the O-ring that it'll go in just fine. If you need to, get a little oil from your new oil bottle and lube that O-ring. Get a little bit of oil on this little guy here. We're just going to drop that guy back down in there. So the torque on this cap is 25 Newton meters or 18 foot-pounds. Just a note, when you're torquing this cap, making it tight as a gorilla can get it doesn't make it seal any better. The O-ring does all the sealing. So that's my calibrated wrist right there. And the filter is done. So now I'm going to go put my tools back. We'll put the drain plug back in. Since we're doing a cold oil change, I'm going to go ahead and let this drain just a little bit longer because we still got a decent little stream coming out of there. It's not mandatory, but I got all the time in the world, so while you're down here doing these kind of regular maintenance items, it's not a bad idea to just take a look around and get a general survey of the bottom of your Jeep and make sure everything looks proper. Okay, so we're down to a drip. Once we're down to a drip, we can go ahead and put the plug back in. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. We'll get that drop off of there in just a second. Drain plug should be 20 foot-pounds. That's a calibrated wrist. Drain plugs are pretty robust anymore. You'd have to really try hard or use some really long leverage tools to strip out the drain pan. And the nice thing is, the way they got these pans built nowadays is you can just replace this little sump. You don't have to take half the engine apart. Okay, so this is tight, 20 foot-pounds, 13 millimeter wrench. We are going to put oil back in it now. You do not want to forget that step. Okay, we're back up topside. Getting ready to put the oil back in. Something I didn't mention at the beginning of the video, it's not a bad idea to check your oil before you change your oil. It's a good way to keep tabs on oil consumption. On this particular engine, we haven't had any problems with oil consumption as of yet. We are right at, I believe, 16,800 miles or so. Get your favorite funnel so you don't make a huge mess. I've had this favorite funnel for about, I don't know, 10 years now. I generally like to pour my bottles from the top, spout up, keeps you from making a mess. Five quarts. I think the older Jeep V6 used closer to 6 quarts, but this engine is 5 quarts. A lot of times I'll prop this up till it's balanced because I want to get my money's worth out of that damn bottle. Just pick this little beauty up out of the driveway. Always try and be observant when you're working around your cars. So when you tip it back over, you get that little bit more out of the bottle. Put your cap back on. Try and put your cap back on. Here again, not a bad idea to take a look around. Top up your bug juice if you need to. Looks like our coolant reservoir's down a little bit. Don't really have a explanation for that, but I'm also not really worried about it too much. Gonna give her a little shot of distilled water. Only use distilled. The split line should be cold. I should say the split line should be the cold fill line. Well, I tell you what, place around here is getting crazier and crazier. Wife was just showing me a video from the local Fred Meyer store. Some guys that tried stealing hundreds and hundreds of dollars of clothes just walked right out the front of the store. Security or an employee saw them, followed them into the parking lot. They couldn't find their car. When they started heading to their car, because they finally found their car, the employee knocked them down. They dropped all the clothes on the ground. Guy dropped his keys on the ground. Fred Meyer employee took the guy's keys. Now the thief is freaking out. They ended up walking away. It's quite a story. Okay, so sorry about getting sidetracked a little bit there. Trying to keep this video short and to the point. Oh no. Okay, so it knows the hood's open, but we don't care about that. We got our oil put back in it, so I'm going to go ahead and start it. Okay, that's what I wanted to see. We took her down to 1%. There's our change oil soon. I honestly don't know when the light comes on. It's either 5% or 3%. It was 3% when I very first looked at it. This is going to vary depending on your driving decisions, driving conditions, when the oil life minder decides to go off. To be fair, on our vehicle, we do tow 6,000 pounds with this Gladiator at least a half a dozen times a year, so it's going to shorten your oil life interval up a little bit. Fun fact, this Jeep has E-rated tires on it. They're aftermarket wheels and tires. I have never added air to this thing since we got it. And yes, the pressures are in the 20s because it's got E-rated tires on it. I don't want it to ride like a lumber wagon. Okay. All right, so this is the screen it's normally on. If we want to get to the oil change minder, scroll up and down arrows. You can't do it from the message center, so that's just telling you that the oil needs to be changed. But you have to get down to the vehicle info. Once you get to vehicle info, you scroll left right until you get to the oil reset. Now to reset it, it's obviously as simple as just holding the button down. So we turn the engine back off. I'm going to cycle this until it says run, but the engine's not running. We're just ignition on. Yes, I know. Okay, oil life is reset. Sorry, I made that more confusing than it needs to be. We're going to get out and make sure there isn't oil pouring all over the ground, which there really is no excuse for there to be. Make sure the cap is sealed. So then what I'll usually do is I'll go ahead and shut the engine back off and let it sit for a while. And then we'll check the dipstick just to make sure it's at a happy level, which honestly, when you put 5 quarts in there, it's going to be just fine. So if you happen to not check the oil, your engine's not going to blow up. So it really is a pretty self-explanatory job. Any novice mechanic should be able to accomplish this task. But if you guys have any questions or felt that I misinformed anybody, by all means, post it in the comments. I don't like to give out bad information, so it's never a good thing. Anyways, we'll see you on the next one.